Don't forget, hour number 2, like hour number 1, is brought to you by McCarthy Auto Group. Check them out at kccars.com. Great deals on new and used certified cars.
As you mentioned, Scott, earlier in the program, the War Racing Series has a new presenting sponsor. Impact Awnings, Signs, and Wraps is the new presenting sponsor of the War Series and the president of War Series. This series started, this non-wing sprint car series started a year ago, and they've already had one full season under their belt, ready for season number 2. Tony Crank is the head of that series, got it up and running. He's joining us right now. Tony, thanks for coming on the RacinBoys here this morning. You got to be really excited about the start of the 2013 season. You thought it was going to happen this weekend, but Mother Nature intervened. But congratulations on a very successful first season for you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. We really appreciate it. And the RacinBoys has been a big supporter, and we appreciate everything you and Kirk have done. And can't wait to get back to the track and see you guys again this year.
What was the biggest thing that surprised you about getting through the first season? I know this is a big undertaking whenever somebody starts up a new series. What are some of the things that you were concerned about heading in, and now that the first season is under its belt, what's the biggest thing that surprised you about getting into running a series and having really a pretty successful first season?
I think, like anybody else, the unknown is the biggest thing we feared. Not knowing what to expect, but Andy Cordy and I put together a pretty good deal, and all in all, I think it went pretty well. I think the biggest obstacle we had is, like anybody else, financially. But I think we made it through, and Impact Signs has come on board this year, and they're going to be a big supporter. So I think we're nothing but bigger and better things to come.
Yeah. What would you grade your season last year, Tony? How would you grade it, and what are the things that you want to do this year that you learned from last year?
Well, I think I'd grade us as a C. I know Andy and I are pretty particular, so we're pretty hard on ourselves. I think I'd like for us to be a little bit more organized on the backside. The fans don't really see it. Track promoters see it, and we just like to be a little more organized. But I think all in all, I think we did a real good job. I know by the end of the year, everything had come together and it was running really smooth. So we're really excited about this year. Like I said, we've got Impact Signs, on board. Waterloo has come back to support us, and Maxwell Industries has come back on as well. So I can't wait to get started. I really wish we wouldn't have gotten rained out this weekend. I think we had about 25 to 30 cars lined up to run, so it was setting up to be a pretty good weekend. I'm just disappointed that we got all the snow.
Have you rescheduled that event that got rained out at Midway?
We have not, and at this point in time, I don't know that we're going to, due to some races that Lebanon has already scheduled. I think our first race is just going to be on the 13th of April at LA Raceway in Lamont, Missouri. That'll be our opener.
Tony, how far is too far for you guys? This is, let's be fair, this is when we talk about war, we're talking about some guys that get into it for several reasons. Some guys just prefer non-wing sprint cars. Some guys feel that it doesn't take the money that it takes to run a full-blown 360 Warrior car or what have you. Just talk about that a little bit.
I really feel like, right at this point in time, I really do feel like our base is pretty much predominantly Kansas City-based cars. So I really feel like where we're at Lebanon is probably the farthest I want to go to the east. Same thing to the west. I really don't want to go. I'd like to keep it within 100-mile, 150-mile radius of Kansas City. I think anything past 2.5 hours is probably too far for a local guy. Those guys all work for a living Monday through Friday, which is part of the reason about not rescheduling some of the races. Guys have to take off work, and they already have other, previous commitments and stuff. So we got to keep in mind that they are not running professionally. So I really feel like about 2.5 hours from Kansas City and the radius of that is probably about as far as we should go.
Well, let me ask you one follow-up question to that. the Valley Sprints, that's kind of where this form of non-wing sprint car racing started, and you've kind of adapted the rules. Now, I don't know if there's any difference in the rules or not, but it's similarity. It's kind of I don't know if open non-wing sprint car racing is the proper term for it, but how do you? I know in the beginning you originally the plans were to work with Valley Speedway somewhat, so you guys didn't step on each other. But I know there was a couple times you guys cross-promoted against each other. What do you do to make sure that the guys that want to run the Valley Sprints and run there often, and they want to run with you, how do you compromise and make it to where guys can do both?
Well, if you look at our schedule, you said we crossed a couple times last year. Actually, I think there was only one date that was on a
Double
Friday
X.
night that crossed over. So I
That was
thought we
at
did a
Double
real
X,
good job
right?
of that last year.
Maybe that's the only one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, what's that?
I said maybe that's the only one I'm thinking of. Was that down at Double X
Yeah.
one night? Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was a Double X.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
it was one of those deals I did not want to cross-promote. Dennis and I had talked about that earlier in the year. But it was something that in order to book, one race, we were going to get 3 races out of the deal. And that comes back to the financial end of it. We needed as many races as we could get to get the exposure. So that's kind of why we took that on. But, this year, if you look at the schedule, we put that first race in April. It was on a Friday this week. But Green Valley hasn't started yet, so it wasn't going to cross over. So if you look at our schedule, we have 19 races booked this year. Only 2 of them we're going to cross over on a Friday night with Valley. So, once again, we put the schedule together with those guys in mind because, like I said, predominantly our car count is Kansas City based. So I'm doing everything I can scheduling-wise to get races without crossing that over on a Friday night.
Isn't it amazing how many non-wing sprint car fans there is in the Kansas City area? I think that's really a throwback to my generation. When we were young kids, that's all they ran was non-wing sprint cars. It's pretty amazing how that community is taken onto your series, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I love it. And much like you, I grew up around the sport. And, my grandparents raced, my dads and uncles raced sprint cars, and I did as well, and my brother's still doing it. So, yeah, it's in my blood. It's something that we did. I remember going in the 70s and watching them run with bolt-on cages. So
yeah, I do too.
I remember those days, and that was my motivation behind putting this deal together. I remember the days when racing was racing and it wasn't follow the leader. And I feel like don't get me wrong, the World of Outlaws is a great organization, but on any given night you can show up and I can pick the top 5 before they ever hit the track. And I wanted something that, that when the guys get out there, you never know who's going to win and who's going to be the fastest. We had multiple winners. I think last year we had 7 different winners in the first 8 races. So it was one of those deals where you never knew who was going to win.
Right.
So I feel like that's what the people like is good racing.
Talk about how important the different engine packages is to this series of building up car count. I think a lot of people would be surprised that you could run different engine combinations, even 305, and be successful in this series. How important is that to your series?
Oh, it's huge. As a matter of fact, our first 3 races last year, 2 of them were won by a 305. 2 out of the first 3 races. We had 3 305s.
Was that Mitchell Moore?
One was Mitchell Moore. The other was J.D. Black.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, so we did have 2 305 guys win right off the bat. Chad Ty also won later in the year at Atchison, Kansas with 305. So we had, multiple winners. I think we had 3 410s win, 3 305s, and then the remaining races, which, we had 15 last year, so the remaining 9 races were 360s. And they were different combinations of 360s. We had, steelhead 360s, flat tappet cams, roller cams, ASVS motors. And that's the good thing about the series is you can put basically any motor you want in and go run with it. It keeps it very, cost effective.
Right. Well, Tony, I'm happy for you. I'm glad that it's working out, and you managed to come back and give us another season here. And it seems like this thing's got wheels under it, and it's growing. And I know there's a lot of fans of WAR out there. So congratulations last year, and good luck to you in 2013.
Well, thank you, Scott. You and Kirk have a great day, and anytime you want to have us on the show, be more than willing to come in and visit with you.
Plug your
So
website.
thank you guys very much.
Plug your website.
What's that?
Plug your website, Tony, and how people can get to you and find out more information about the
Yeah. If you go to the WAR website, we've got it newly updated, just as recent as a couple days ago. It's www.warsprints.com. You can check and see a photo page of our drivers, biographies, scheduling, points, rules, payouts, purses. Just, take it all in, and you can also check out our sponsors. Like I said, got high hopes with Impact Signs and Awnings coming on board this year. They've really been a big supporter, and we couldn't do this deal without them. So I want to thank David and Julie Goodson over there for helping us out.
Yeah, good people, for sure. All right, Tony. Thanks so much, man. Good luck.
Yep. You guys take care.
You bet. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Right.
There he is, Tony Crank, president of the War Racing Series, and like that new logo they came out with this year. And, of course, Impact Signs, Awnings, and Wraps coming on board. That's a big thing. David Goodson, big supporter of sprint car racing, and should really give that thing a shot in the arm. And, he graded himself a C last year. That's a pretty honest appraisal coming from
so.
him. And I admire them taking a good, honest look at what they did. And, it's like anything. You got to expect growing pains, and mistakes are made no matter anybody taking over something new and doing something different like that. But those willing to learn from what they've done in the past and grow with it, I've got pretty good feeling about where they're headed with this series. And just like we talked about earlier, the engine combinations that you can run in this series and be successful, that is really the secret to why they're able to get so many cars. And even the non-wing non-sanctioned weekly races they run at Valley Speedway were some of the greatest races we've seen in any class all season long out here. And it's just all the competition level and the number of racers that are coming out to revive non-wing racing here in Kansas City, and certainly done that, and War's been a big part of that.
No, I agree with you. There's any time that you start out as a promoter or running a touring series, there's going to be some bumps along the way, some unforeseen things that that maybe you couldn't predict going into a season. And I think that Tony ran across some of that last year. A little eye-opening year for him. But I got to believe that their willingness to stay with it, keep digging, getting a great sponsor like Impact Signs, Awnings, and Wraps on board with David and Julie Goodson, that means a big deal to them. That gives them also credibility, not only in the region but around the country, because a lot of people know the work of David Goodson and what they do down there at Impact. So, I think this is going to be a much better year for them. I hate to see that they're still cross-promoting a couple of races. They only did that once last year. A disaster, by the way. I think only 4 or 5 cars showed up down there at Double X the one night that they decided to do that. And that's the only thing that I'm concerned about is, he said that they did that because there was an opportunity to sign up for 3 more races down there. An agreement is an agreement. You can't sell out for money and do what you say you're going to do. So if you're not going to cross-promote, if you tell somebody you're not going to cross-promote, don't do it. Don't cross-promote. And don't say, well, I had to because I was going to get 3 more dates. It's just, that's not the agreement.
That's the part I don't like. And you got to remember that Valley Speedway is really where this
It's
started.
the home of that car.
Yeah, it's where it started.
It really
it's
is.
where the idea, and I remember talking with Ray Boyles. He's really the guy that came up and, hey, listen, you can run these different engine combinations, be successful in non-wing sprint car racing. So Dennis Schrout tried it, where a lot of promoters would not, and it worked. And so that you got to be mindful that that's where it started. Those you need to be considerate to those who got that put together that way, and just don't book up against them. That's all I'm saying. You don't have to run sanctioned races there. Just don't book up against them.
You know what? Sometimes you got to resist the temptation of the quick buck.
Yeah.
I mean, really. And that's in business, not just in promoting racetracks. Sometimes it's better not to take the money now and be rewarded the benefit later by your actions. And that's all I'm trying to say. So.
It looks like maybe one of the Friday nights up there, I don't have a calendar to see which day it's on here, but I see where US 36 is racing an event on May the 3rd with USAC up there. They normally race their events on Friday night. That's one of the Friday nights that is very tempting to try to go with. And I see Lebanon Midway August 2nd. That looks like another Friday night event. If I'm looking at the calendar right.
That Lebanon Midway, I'll be honest with you, that's a little stretch for me, Wise. You know, he says 150 miles. I'm thinking that's quite a bit more than 150 miles, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's one other Friday, Saturday.
Springfield.
You know, the Jesse Hockett Memorial runs Friday
and
Saturday night, September 27th and 28th. So they're a part of that event, too. And
well, I love the War Series. Don't get me wrong. You know, we dissect every series and every promoter there is around. So this is, you know, when we have something that maybe we'd like to see, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily right. But I like what they're doing. I like the continued growth and the amount of cars that continue to show up. I mean, sometimes we see almost 30 cars show up for some of these events. So something's going on good there with War. The War Sprints is it's something that you want to go watch. You know, we hated what happened last year with Jeff Osborne, what happened at Valley. And that's just part of racing, though. That has no reflection on the series itself. So as long as they make sure these cars are safe, that's the most important thing.
That is the big thing. And, of course, a lot of people are worried about the safety of non-wing sprint car racing. These chassis, the seats that these drivers are buckled into, it's a lot safer than it used to be, but it is still a dangerous form of racing. And, you know,
it's the most dangerous form, really.
And, you know, that's part of the attraction that people love about non-wing racing is the fans know it's dangerous, that the guys who strap in these race cars are taking their lives in their own hands. That's part of it. That's part of the attraction of what this type of racing brings to the table. I got to admit to you, Scott, it is the most dangerous form of racing, but
that's why we like it.
That's why we like to go. That's why they draw the crowds that they draw. There's no doubt about that.
Matt on the chat room said there's no sprints May 3rd at Valley, so there's not a conflict there.
Okay.
So thank you, Matt. Appreciate that.
That would be the one.
Power Eye Midgets are there on May 3rd, so they're off that weekend.
Would be no conflict
No
there.
conflict right there.
Yeah.
Well, again, and I know Matt's part of the series as well that's on the chat room. Man, I really do like it. In fact, I wouldn't mind driving one myself, a non-wing car.
Stop it.
But
you're too old.
I am too old, but you know, as long as we've got Lauren wanting to drive, I'm only the replacement if Lauren doesn't want to drive. You know,
I don't need you getting hurt in one of them cars there.
I've got to drive one before it's over, Kirk.
That means,
I own a sprint car. At the very least, I want to make some laps in it, practicing one time.
That means my work. That means my work gets a lot tougher if you're laid up in a hospital somewhere. We don't need that.
It's all right. You can handle it.